What would the Electoral College look like if Trump had a fantastic night? We're about to discuss that. I'm going to do a Harris one as well if she had a best case scenario night. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already by clicking the icon in the bottom right of your screen. Let's get started. I'm going to start in Nevada. Best case scenario for Trump. Now, just today, literally 2 hours ago, they announced that Jill Stein will not be on the ballot in Nevada. Now, this is good news for Harris, bad news for Trump, because as you know, in 2016, Hillary Clinton lost because a small portion of her vote went to Jill Stein, and that caused her to lose in many of the swing states. But in Nevada, Trump has been polling much better than any Republican has in recent memory. The last time Nevada went red was George W. Bush in 2004. But in Nevada, you look at the polling, Trump's doing not too badly. He's tied in some, maybe down by half a point, up by half a point. I think if he has a good night, Nevada, he can win fairly easily if he has a great night. Let's go to Arizona. I've talked about Arizona ad nauseum. Republican DNA, lots of conservative voters there going back all the way to Barry Goldwater. But the reason why Trump lost it in 2020 was because a lot of McCain Republicans, moderate Republicans, voted for Joe Biden. Why? Because they thought Biden was more of a moderate candidate, more of kind of like a blue dog Democrat, if you will. But Arizona, of all these swing states, Arizona is probably one of, if not the most likely to go for Trump. I think North Carolina is up there too. They're probably tied for the most likely to go for Trump. So if he has a great night, he's definitely going to win the state of Arizona. Let's go to Minnesota. A lot of people have high hopes for Minnesota. They're saying, this is the year, this is the year. I don't think this is the year. Even if Trump has a fantastic night, I do not believe Minnesota is going to vote Republican. Again, this is a state that has been blue for a long, long, long time. Trump came sort of close in 2016, and that was with a very, very unpopular Democrat candidate. So I'm going to keep Minnesota for Harris, even if Trump has a fantastic evening on election night. Let's do Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania all at once. Why? Because usually, these states vote together if a candidate has a fairly good evening. If you go back to Obama's victories, both of them, he won by 3 or 4 points in all three states. If you go back to George W. Bush in 2004, losing to John Kerry won those states pretty handily. And then you go to Trump, and Trump in the Trump era, these states are very, very razor thin. He won all three of them, yes. But if you look back to my Electoral College map prediction, my last one, I will post another one soon. But in my last one, I had Wisconsin and Michigan going blue with Pennsylvania going red. That's very odd that that would happen. The reason why I think it's possible for it to happen now, where it hasn't really happened much in the past, is that now these three states are so razor thin, there's so narrow a margin that it's very possible that one candidate squeaks by in one but loses the others. So, but if we're talking about a night where Trump really runs up the score and really does well and wins by, let's say he wins Pennsylvania by 2 or 3 points. Well, if he wins Pennsylvania by that margin, he's probably going to win these other two states by that margin. So if he has a great night, I'm thinking he sweeps the Rust Belt. He's done it before in 2016. And if you look at his polling now, he's actually polling much better now than he was in 2016 and 2020 at this point in the race. And I know people are going to get angry in the comments, and go ahead, that's fine. This is the best case scenario. This is not exactly how I think it's going to go. This is simply if Trump has a really good night. Let's go up here to the Northeast, Maine and New Hampshire. People seem to be very optimistic about Maine for some reason, and New Hampshire to some extent. Here's why I think that's not going to happen. Both of these states, even if Trump has a good night, are going to go blue. And now, mind you, there is the second congressional district in Maine, which will go red. Don't have that represented on this map right now, just to be clear. So Trump, if he has a great night, he will still probably take that one little district in Maine. But let's talk about New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a state that people think, well, look, there's a lot of white voters there. Trump tends to do better with white voters than he does with minority voters, but that doesn't tell you the whole story. Trump does really well with white working class voters. Now, there are many affluent white voters who will vote for Trump. You can't win an election without them. You come down to Florida, you go through affluent neighborhoods, you see Trump signs, you see Trump flags, you even see Trump boats, flags from Trump boats, or Trump flags from boats, I should say. So it is true that there are a lot of affluent whites who vote for Trump, but his bread and butter, his base, is the white working class. Now, New Hampshire isn't really a white working class state. New Hampshire has a lot of highly educated voters, and the white voters there are sort of mirroring how a white voter would vote in, say, Massachusetts, not really Ohio or Michigan or somewhere like that. So it's a real kind of a New England white vote, and there is a difference there. So I think that even if Trump comes out victorious and it's a really good night at Mar-a-Lago, I don't think he's going to win those states. It's possible, but on my map, he doesn't win them. Let's go to Virginia. Today, there was a poll that came out in Virginia showing Trump down by 1 point, which is great news for the Trump campaign, considering that in 2020 he lost the state by 10 points. Now, we have seen polls in Virginia showing a close race 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, but then we went a little while without seeing one. They kind of reverted back to the mean for a while, with Harris leading by, I think, 4 or 5 points. But every now and then we get a poll that creeps up, and it makes the Harris campaign very nervous, and it makes Trump think he can maybe win that state. And I would not be surprised if we get 1 or 2 more polls like that Trump makes a visit to Virginia just for good measure to see what happens there. Now, it is my belief, similar to what I just talked about in New Hampshire, that Virginia is a state that's very hard for Trump to win. Now, full disclosure, in the midterm elections, I did not think that Glenn Youngkin could win in Virginia. He did end up winning. And I think the best candidate to run for the Republicans in a state like Virginia is a Glenn Youngkin type candidate, evangelical, moderate, um, more presentable, and more in the mold of the George Bush era. However, we are not in that era now. We are in the Trump MAGA era. And there are a lot of voters in Virginia who still hold those traditional Republican beliefs. There's a lot of, government contractors there, of course. That's not the whole state, but especially in the Northeast. And these voters, typically, they would vote Republican, but probably will not vote for Trump. Of course, Western Pennsylvania is a different story. And if there's high turnout in Western Pennsylvania, it's possible. And Glenn Youngkin has been campaigning hard for Trump, and he seems quite optimistic about Virginia. So, really, if Trump has a fantastic night, he may come close there. He may even win it. But in my opinion, even if it's a great night for Trump, I think Virginia will be elusive for him just because of the changes in that state, just because Trump is not the same type of Republican as Glenn Youngkin is. So we'll see what happens. But of the states that may possibly be an outside shot for Trump, Virginia might be the most optimistic for the Trump campaign, but I'm going to keep it blue. North Carolina, as I said before with Arizona, of the major swing states, Arizona and North Carolina are the states that I feel most confident Trump will win. So, and you'll see in my Harris best case scenario for Kamala Harris, you will see that North Carolina will stay in the Trump column. I'm kind of giving away that state now, but North Carolina, probably the best state for Trump. I know he's polling very closely there. I know it's making the Trump campaign very nervous. But remember that even in 2020, Trump held North Carolina. There's a lot of rural vote in North Carolina. The certain parts of North Carolina that are always traditionally Republican. They always come through for the Republican candidate. They came through in 2020 for him as well. Mind you, it's a state like Georgia that's changing very quickly, but I'm pretty comfortable with Trump winning North Carolina, and especially if he has a really good night. So let's go to Georgia. Demographics have changed big time in Georgia. It is not a very Trumpy state, but again, of the swing states where he is competitive, Georgia is the one where we typically see him with a lead, very small lead, mind you, but a lead nonetheless. So Georgia, I think, will go for Trump if he has a great night. So you are looking at an electoral college map where Mar-a-Lago is celebrating and Trump is bragging about his landslide victory. Now, is this likely to happen? I don't know. But all I'm saying is this is the best case scenario for Trump. People are saying, well, best case scenario, he'd be winning Minnesota. And there's even talk the other night about Trump is going to win New York. If Trump wins the state of New York, I will eat a bug on live stream, just like that guy in 2016 who said, if Trump wins, I'm going to eat a bug. And they forced him to do just that. New York, he's down by 15 points. It may be closer than usual. We had the gubernatorial race there where Hochul only won by like 3 or 4 points against Lee Zeldin. I would not be surprised to see 40% of the state or 42, 43% of the state vote for Trump on a good night for him. But Manhattan and New York City, it's just really too much to overcome. You could get the entire Western New York and all the rural areas to come out in large numbers for you, and it wouldn't come close to canceling out New York City. So, unfortunately for Trump, his home state, his birth state, will not be voting for him, I don't believe, even if it is a fantastic night for him. But 312 to 223, that's a convincing victory. And if he can do that, not only will he be president, but he will have a huge mandate from the American people on a whole range of issues. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click the icon in the bottom right corner. Click the bell notification so you know when I go live. I've been going live more and more lately, and I will be releasing a video just like this, but a best case scenario for Kamala Harris. So look out for that. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Good night and God bless.